On this episode of Lapeef, Let's Talk.
I'm not saying that I know because I didn't fully dive into it. But if the data is saying that more people are staying together than ever, how could it be also? How could it also be that it's getting harder for families to stay together if less people than ever are breaking up? That doesn't make sense. Can you explain?
So, for example, you also have to add in the context, and this is why it's important that we have the conversation. That's why it's called Lapeef, Let's Talk, right? And that less people are also choosing to get married. We haven't addressed that aspect of the conversation. You know what I'm saying? Why are more people choosing to stay single and get married later based off of the context that Courtney added into the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's so many different things that we need to deep dive into, because I'm sure that, and I haven't done the research, if you segment it out, right? Maybe more people that are marrying younger are getting divorced, but overwhelmingly people that are getting married older are staying together. I don't know, right? That's why we have the conversation. But in order to have the conversation, we need to address the most popular perspective that is often at times cited across social media, and that people aren't staying together today. I think it's a valid question.
What's interesting, I don't know if it was in the Facebook group or on another, where if I saw it somewhere else, but somebody posted this meme talking about, it was a Twitter thread, and it was like, you know, talking about how people, once they get past a certain age and want to get divorced at, you know, at a certain age and think they want to get back out here, ain't no fun out here after. Did you see it, Lauren?
Yes, it was really funny, but it was very true. Like, this ain't the life you want to live. This single life out here, whether you're young or old.
Yeah, I think I saw that too.
Yeah, I would have to agree with the points that it has a lot to do with finances. More and more people are leaving their actual jobs to pursue their passion or their dream job, most of which don't necessarily follow your traditional, I want to be a doctor, lawyer. They're actually like pursuing some like their passion. And you're finding more and more entrepreneurs. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs on this panel. And, you know, it doesn't happen overnight. So there will be some years where you take a hit and where it's just slow to get there. And so basically people that marriages don't necessarily last if you're making less than a certain amount per year. And so whether or not that couple is able to withstand that would determine whether or not they're able to stay together. Also, this idea of social media becoming a bigger phenomenon, like it's been out for a while, but it's just developing so much so that you have like the vanish mode and all the sneaky links. Like, it's just making it easier for more people to be deceitful. And we know, like, if you are at a certain level, like the expectation that perhaps your spouse will step out is higher than not. But I think what comes into play is the communication aspect. If I instantly thought about like Will and Jada, I'm pretty sure when they married for each other, for love. But then as time went on, they were like, okay, we want to have an open marriage. So they communicated that. I think nowadays communication isn't happening, and people are just operating on the pretense that this is just what we do now, and you just have to take the fact that I'm gonna have a number two, or I'm a step out. So infidelity has become a norm. So there's a lot of different factors why I think they're not staying together. And when I think of the word like staying together, it doesn't necessarily have to mean divorce. It can mean separation, legal separation. It could mean just dissension in the home. Like, the family unit is meant to be cohesive, it's meant to be tight. And unfortunately, with all of these factors, it allows for loopholes and things to come into play to where you don't have that strong family unit anymore. It makes it a little bit more risky.
Okay. We'll put up, you got a couple of it right here. Is this what it was, Anton? Anton, you there? My bad, my mic was muted. Yeah, whatever the link was that I sent you, I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah. Can you see that, Kay?
Yeah. Does that mean for every 1,000 marriages that occurred in 2019? I'm just asking, Anton, since you reviewed this data and I did not.
I literally just pulled it up. So also in the article, it also highlights that the marriage rate is also hitting an all-time low during the time that they did this survey. So that's just extra context that we can add in order to be able to have a conversation.
Okay. I mean, like I said, it's not that I don't believe you. I just wonder if they're saying that for all the marriages that occurred in 2019, because that's different.
I don't think that would make sense though, because the data is for 2019. So they
right.
wouldn't.
But
someone got married in the year and then divorced in the same year.
Right. It says for every 1,000 marriages in the last year. So I'm just wondering if that means that for the marriages of that year,
we probably have to do a deep dive.
I'll do it.
I didn't research it, but I just wanted to get some insight on whether or not I'd be speaking based off of what I thought, or just at the very least, get a foundation.
Yeah.
For being able to have a conversation. So
thank you, Anton, for bringing some data. I'll definitely look further into it.
Well, I think that's great. That's obviously great news. And so is that meaning that it's getting harder to stay together if marriages are at an all-time low? And I think that's important for us to know if people are saying, oh, everyone's getting divorced. I mean, yes, with the Currys, it's highlighted because they're famous, obviously. But if it's at an all-time low, that should be celebrated. So I think that's awesome. But I did read a little bit of that article too. And it also said what I thought was interesting is that people are now getting married older or later in life. So as opposed to back in the day when I think the man was like 25, the woman might've been 23 or something like that. Don't quote me, but now the man is 30 and the woman is like 27 or 28. So we're also waiting later to get married. So, and I think that plays a part in it, which I think is interesting because we're always saying, look at when you're in college in your 20s, that's your prime time. But the marriages that are lasting, they're older.
So then does that mean that this question is based on a false premise?
What's the false premise?
Because it says, why is it getting harder for families to stay together in this modern age? But Anton just said that people are staying together and it's at an all-time low. So I'm just wondering, why would that be a question if everything is going so great and better than before?
I think that the question is valid because it addresses a couple of different things. The first thing that it addresses is it allows us to be able to have a conversation and even bring it to the forefront based off of what people are saying across social media in general. Most people think that the families are not staying together, when in reality, we can have this conversation and come to a conclusion. So it's not that the question is based off of a false premise. It just sets the foundation for us to be able to address things and have the conversation. Like any question is just a question. None of it is based off of a false premise at all.
Okay. So, wait. Okay, JR, do you want to move on or should I say what I was about to say?
No, you can go. You go ahead. I'm gonna move on. Go ahead.
Okay. So if the question is why is it getting harder, but then Anton, the data that you're, saying that I'm not saying that I know because I didn't fully dive into it. But if the data is saying that more people are staying together than ever, how could it be also? How could it be
for example,
it's getting harder for families to stay together if less people than ever are breaking up? That doesn't make sense. Can you explain?
So, for example, you also have to add in the context, and this is why it's important that we have the conversation. That's why it's called Lapeef, Let's Talk, right? And that less people are also choosing to get married. We haven't addressed that aspect of the conversation. You know what I'm saying? Why are more people choosing to stay single and get married later based off of the context that Courtney added into the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's so many different things that we need to deep dive into, because I'm sure that, and I haven't done the research, if you segment it out, right? Maybe more people that are marrying younger are getting divorced, but overwhelmingly people that are getting married older are staying together. I don't know, right? That's why we have the conversation. But in order to have the conversation, we need to address the most popular perspective that is often at times cited across social media, and that people aren't staying together today. I think it's a valid question.